Who goes first? You go first, I go first?
I'll go first. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Full Throttle on Unprecedented TV, produced in conjunction with ourselves, the Alliance of British Drivers. I'm Brian Gregory. I'm the Policy Director of the ABD. And with me is my colleague, Paul Naylor, who is our Communications Director.
Hello there. Hello there. Now, for whatever reason, my script hasn't arrived, so I'm just going to just go for it.
Yeah, it's a Morecambe and Wise ad-lib job.
So I'm Paul Naylor, Communications Director with the Alliance of British Driver. And what Brian and I like to do, we do these Full Throttle shows, and we like to debate all the things that are going on, not only in the world of motoring, but also with the net zero agenda. And we have got a real powerhouse with us today, haven't we, Brian?
Yes, we have indeed. We have Paul Burgess with us. And of course, with the west of Europe being underneath a heat dome at the moment, which is getting heavily reported, and of course, it's a clear sign of climate change. The fact that Eastern Europe is suffering anomalously low temperatures at the moment is not being reported at all by the mainstream media. But if you look at the temperature graphs, you'll see that that's true. Eastern Europe eastwards is anomalously cold, because the jet stream's buckled at the moment, and warm temperatures are seeping farther down south than they are normally, and cold temperatures on the opposite side of the front are pushing northwards.
So shall we bring Paul out of the green room?
Yeah,
come on,
yeah,
Paul.
let's bring Paul. Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
Good. Great to see you again.
But it is indeed, Paul. I was just explaining that, of course, the mainstream media are in overdrive now about the current anomalously warm temperatures under the heat dome in Western Europe, but have totally ignored that the meridional jet stream effect is operating, and that Eastern Europe's under anomalously cold conditions.
That's right.
Not covering that at all. But anyway, let's talk about this whole thing about are these so-called exceptional temperatures actually exceptional, or are there other factors that can explain what's going on?
Well, one of the magic things about climate change is when it's going to make it hot, it always does it at an airport. So it's always
yeah.
No, it does. It picks on the airport. It's either Heathrow or Coningsby, RAF Coningsby, or another one. Always an airport, especially Heathrow. Now, I'll start off. I've actually, I'm going to bring up a graph in a minute. This one. That one. I think you've got it. I was water resource engineer for Wales in 1976 in the big drought, as it were. And it was an 18-month drought, really. Yeah. And what I did last night, because I knew there was going to be, I've been on other news channels today. What I did was I simply plotted the temperatures for the summer, June or July and August. The blue line is 1976. And the last year was apparently the hottest year so far. And there's the hottest year so far last year, which is the red line, which is less. Far less. And if you take the tiny bit where it's August was slightly above the 76 one, but if you look at the area between the two curves, tiny. So overall, 76 just blasted it completely. And that happened to be 50 years ago, exactly. 50 years ago. And of course, you had continuous days over 30, which went on and on and on in 1976. So if it's climate change, it must have cooled then, on using their argument. This is how it's cool till 2025. The truth is, what they're doing is lying. They're mixing up weather with climate, and you can't do that. You really can't do that. And I've got a second graph. So let's take the zigzaggy graph you've got, which is this one. The zigzaggy graph.
Nice. Yeah.
I think you've got it somewhere.
Yeah.
Charlotte will no doubt bring it up in a second.
That's the June mean temperatures. There we are. Now, I've plotted since 2000 the June average temperatures just for the month of June. So if you actually take the heat in the month of June, the average, this is not peaks, this is the average temperature throughout the month, because let's face it, if you've got global warming, it doesn't wait till the moment it does a peak. It's got to be warm throughout the month. And of course, we're declining, aren't we? If you go back to 2013, that's where the peak was for June on the amount of heat. And then, zigzagging, but it's on the way down. So we're getting cooler using their logic. Using their logic. So next one I'll come to is you can do either of the text bits I've got, the range of errors and impacts. This is the type of errors there are on the thermometers, and I want to explain that. So this is coming up. There are, with thermometers, all thermometers, there are conditions to measure the temperature that must be met. And the first one is, if you're going to measure the temperature, don't measure it in an urban heat island, right? Airports are urban heat islands. Kew Gardens is an urban heat island. The whole of London's an urban heat island. And so what you're measuring is the retained heat. And that's the first one. That can add between 2 and 5 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 to 3 centigrade, right? So that adds. The second one is, if you're using a digital analog, which is a digital thermometer, that does every 15 seconds a reading and averages them over a minute and puts it out. And that gives a higher reading than the old ordinary thermometers. So when you're comparing to 76, that was an analog thermometer. That was a normal mercury thermometer, which reads lower, right? And the third one's a really big one, and this is really important. The Stevenson screen in which these things live, the white boxes with the slits in to let the air through, unless, according to the ISO standard, and I'll quote the number so any critic out there can check, ISO 17714 states there must be 1 meter a second of air passing through to get a reliable reading. And that's sensible. So the last thing you want to do is bake inside a box in a hot day, a thermometer, right? Now, they measure the air temperature, the wind speed at 10 meters. That's standard throughout all the Met stations. But to go from that 10 meters down to the 1.5 meters that the thermometer's at, you'd have to need 22 miles an hour at the top. So unless the wind is blowing fairly hefty, you're not going to get it. And so it's pot luck what you get out of the gauge. That's a big one. So there are these 3 factors. And so temperature gauges are pretty meaningless. And they give a rough indication, right? But they're not climate. And I was in charge of the whole of Wales's temperature gauges for the Water Authority, you know, and I've had staff working under me going to check them all and read them all the old days or telemeter them in, etc. And I just know these things as standard. And the Met Office know them. But the Met Office want to cause alarm. And the reason they want to cause alarm by changing the colours on the Met Office, weather forecast and all that, the reason they do it is because by causing alarm, they get more money. And instead of just doing the weather, and you know what? I've sailed around the world and on my own with my wife, and the two of us depend on weather. We're out in the ocean, further away from human beings and even the people in the space station. So we really do need to know the weather. And the truth is, the best weather forecast, most you go ahead is about 5 days. And you're really into unknown terms. And no matter how many millions are spent, that's all they've got to so far is about 5 days. And each day becomes more and more inaccurate as you go on. And the Met Office, I've helped the Restore Party recently create their energy policy. I didn't write it, they did, but I helped them a lot. In doing that, I come up with a whole pile of scenarios to do away with things. And one of the things I wish I'd added is the Met Office be stripped down to just doing the weather, because the whole thing's just an empire building scheme.
But even with their own data, Paul, there are categories of measurement sites from 1, which is like gold standard, to 5. And the problem is the vast majority of their sites are 4 and 5. So the temperature variation is plus or minus 5 degrees, I think it is for a class 5.
Plus or minus 5. They've only got 13.7% as grade 1 or grade 2, right? Only 13, so 80% on.
So now 4 out of every 5 are junk science.
That's right. They say they adjust them. But they've managed these days to even adjust temperature gauges by taking all the ones around them. And we found out that not only is the temperature gauge they're taking not there, but all the ones around them aren't there either. They've all been modeled.
So the whole thing is just a house of cards built on supposition and propaganda.
Totally. And with the climate, the email scam, you know, the climate email scam, they were involved in that. And it is pure scam. So that's one more point. And I'll just finish off. I made a note. And I want to make this point. And these are the temperatures in June, August 1976. On the 3rd of July, the temperature was 35.6 in Southampton. 35.6. In 2025, it was 35.8 in July in Faversham. But the 35.6 was actually a mercury thermometer, whereas the 35.8 wasn't. And the 35.8 was actually on a really good position in Mayflower Park. It wasn't in an urban heat island, and it had the ventilation of the sea, etc.
Yeah.
That's in Southampton. And so much better reading. So you can't, the truth is, I'm not going to play ball the other way. You can't take temperature readings like they're taking and say it's climate, right?
Yeah.
And what was handed to me today on the Mike Graham show was the fact that France has accumulated the temperatures in an area and said the amount of heat is greater, not just the amount of temperature, which is why I already anticipated that, which is why I had that one with the summer of 1976 having a lot more heat. So not only is the magic of climate alarmism just picking
cherry picking.
Well, to pick it's not even designed for station. It's a grade 3 station at Heathrow. It's a grade 3 station at Kew. They'll often use, Kew's the same. Well, it is. It's right in the middle. Have you seen a map of it? It's surrounded by houses and development. It's a heat island, and it's meaningless. And so whenever you hear any temperature record coming from an airport, and I'm expecting them today later on, ignore it. And even if it's from a country, if they said, look, let's go back to the ones that are in the countryside, why don't they quote them? They don't. They don't quote the countryside ones. They just quote the ones in the urban heat islands that are stuffed inside a hot box. To put it blunt, that's where we are. That's where
I mean, unless I was just going to say, unless you're using exactly the same measuring device and the same conditions, you can't compare one with another.
No,
that's the bottom line.
No, you can't. And the big
of course they go on.
So the biggest one is the air passing through. You've got to 1 meter a second is 2.2 miles an hour, and you need around about 22 miles an hour at 10 meters because of the gradient. There's a gradient with the ground. And so it's almost never the case that you're going to get 20 miles an hour wind today, right? You're going to get highs with hardly any wind. The isobars are really far apart, and you're never going to get that. And so there's always an overreading. What they might argue then, we're comparing like with like because we overread both times. No, because it's pot luck. It isn't even consistently. It isn't even, well, it was bad then by so much and bad now by so much, because the so much varied so much itself. Meaningless.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Indeed.
there's my diatribe.
The other problem, Paul, is that they never look at the geological temperature record. And what the geological temperature record shows is that there are massive discontinuities between temperature and carbon dioxide levels. Sometimes the temperature is rising, the carbon dioxide levels are going down. Other times they're going up, both going up. But only about, I think it's about 20% or so, is there any correlation. And the rest of the time, the correlation is poor or zero. So that, and we know that from Henry's law, essentially the oceans and the atmosphere are in a steady state. I'm not sure you can call it an equilibrium, where the amount of carbon dioxide that's diffusing out of the oceans due to the death of phytoplankton and volcanic eruptions and all that, so that local solubility of carbon dioxide in seawater is exceeded. When that happens, the excess gas diffuses into the atmosphere. And then turning things around, when there's cooling, the oceans, which already contain sort of 50 times the amount of carbon dioxide dissolved compared with what's in the atmosphere, the oceans become a net carbon dioxide sink when there's cooling, because the solubility of carbon dioxide in seawater goes up as the temperature of seawater goes down. So that's Henry's law. And we know that. So changes in carbon dioxide have so many influences. The one I've just mentioned. The other one is that there's been a mechanism operating for the last 145 million years. The steady actual sequestration of carbon dioxide by marine organisms to create shells. And of course, when the organisms die, the shells sink to the bottom deep depths of the ocean. The pressures down there weld those skeletons together to create carboniferous rock, and the organic stuff gets crushed down to be oil. So, that's been operating for the last 145 million years and has reduced atmospheric carbon dioxide levels from, I think it was 600 ppm or something like that, down to the current 400 ppmv.
Well, it's even worse. It used to be 550 million years ago. It used to be around about 6, 7, 8,000 ppm.
Yeah.
And gradually, basically, life was a temporary experiment on Earth because we need CO2 to live. And gradually, over that echoes, it's gone up and down. There's various things. But we're in a CO2 famine now. But my own work, the best work I've ever done is my oceanic index. And that what that says is 25% about of the temperature changes are to do with CO2. The biggest one is the oceans, the different ocean cycles. And then the other one is the sun. So they all come into it. Yeah. And by doing that,
and water vapor, of course.
Yeah, no, but that's a secondary thing as a result. The primary drivers. And what it found, the model, well, they're actually so accurate, it's predicted every single temperature, explained every single temperature without fitting or changing the model for the last 42 years. Dead on. And what it's done is it says the oceans, when the oceans warm from the sun, there's a 1 to 3 year lag before they affect the clouds. And the biggest thermostat on the Earth are clouds. Right?
Yes.
And the interaction between the ocean
water vapor and condensation.
That's right. Water vapor comes into it at that point, and it gives off the water vapor, and it comes into it at that point. So the 1 to 3 year lag in that, funnily enough, today I was asked. Another broadcaster's asked me to do something on that particular paper, whereas the AI they'd sent me got it all wrong. So I've just sent them an AI back to say no, the AI is wrong, and so. What it is yes, CO2 does have an influence, but it's small. It's small, and even if you doubled it now, you'd have an influence of 1 degree C over the next 175 years. But you have other influences that cool. That does not mean to say the Earth's going to warm 1 degree C. It means that's its most effect, and that effect is dying down all the time. So. It's logarithmic scale, as we know.
Yes.
So, but that gets into the science, and really, without even going into the science, today, the fact that you're being deceived in the public by all these extreme temperature business is so ridiculous. Don't forget, 76 was the time we were facing an ice age coming scare. Right?
Yeah, that was what all the media was saying. Yeah,
that's right. It was a big time, there were big documentaries done on it. And I started off one of my videos. I managed to find the documentary and Dr. Spock from Star Trek doing it. Yeah. And going to the science. Going to the scientists and saying, this is bad, yes, the ice is coming. Then going up and meeting the fishermen. Oh, yes, the ice is coming to the Arctic. And so on that went, right? And all it's doing is using CO2, the gas of life, because that's where it is, as a scare. And once you've got control of that, you've got control of everybody.
You've
got control of whether you have brown eggs or white eggs. Right? I vowed on the recent brown and white egg, I said to my wife, only buy brown eggs, the chickens have a better time. They live a lot longer for a start. And she brings back all white. I said, why have you brought back the white? No choice anymore. It's all white in Tesco's now. The virtue signaling by the corporations is beyond belief.
Yeah.
Now, gentlemen, I've got to ask you this question because you'll be able to answer this better than I can, because I was just a child at the time. So in 76, I was 5. I was 6 later in the year. My memories of that time, I can remember playing out. I can remember it being lovely weather. And it was all reported in exactly the same way on the news in terms of the pictures. People going around, enjoying the sun, fanning their faces, ice creams, ice lollies. But then we have the doom mongering these days with the ideology all behind it. How was it reported back then? Was it sort of, we're having some lovely weather, or was it the same sort of doom and gloom?
Absolutely, I mean, I at that stage I was preparing to go to Edinburgh to read business studies, having read my first degree.
Mm.
And I was living, my home at the time was in Newcastle on Tyne. And I invited one of my best friends to come up. We went to a place called Marsden Rock, which is on the northeast coast between Newcastle, Sunderland and Middlesbrough area.
Right.
And there's a pub there called the Marsden Rock. The pub is at the bottom of a cliff. And we went there and it was scorching. I mean, it was 85 degrees, probably in air temperature.
Yeah.
And we'd decided we'd have a pint. I had a cold Guinness, and my friend who was driving also had a Guinness. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to go for a dip in the sea." And I said, "I've got a fiver that says you won't get beyond your knees." Right? He said, "I'll take that." And honestly, the temperature of the North Sea at the time was probably 6, 7, maybe 8 degrees.
Mm.
And he didn't get even to the middle of his calf. He was out like a scalded cat. But as the oceans are the main repository of energy for the climate, because the air currents and convection currents redistribute the energy, but it takes a long time, as Paul's already said. So you could have a baking hot summer, but it's not going to make any real difference to the North Sea temperatures, which is pretty constant all year round, less than 10 degrees, and in the winter 5, maybe 4 or 5. And it's a huge repository. I think the amount of energy stored in the top 30 meters of the oceans far exceeds the amount that's stored in the atmosphere.
Yeah, the
massive difference.
Nothing. The atmosphere is almost nothing.
Exactly.
The land, it's 1,000 times the land. What's stored in the oceans. The atmosphere doesn't hold heat. I mean, the atmosphere goes cold immediately. You're sunbathing, and a cloud passes between you and the sun. You feel that cold instantly. You'll see the shadow coming across literally within seconds. You feel cold. You'll see the women putting on their clothes around themselves just as soon as the cloud comes. So the answer was I was water resource engineer then for Wales, and in 76, and the big problem was drought. The big problem was we'd had a dry 75 years and the 76. There was no scaremongering at all about the weather. It was more or less to do with, well, we're enjoying the weather at least. We've got standpipes, we got standpipes and so on. But we're enjoying the weather at least.
Bands, all the rest of it.
That's right. And so it wasn't like that. It really started to get going around about 89, but that wasn't in the public. But when it came to about 2000, and now when you think about it, someone was aged 7 or 8 being in 2000 is now in the 30s. And they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed all the way through.
That was the point I was going to make. Because my children, I don't remember back in 76 having obviously acutely aware of the news, even when you're that age. I don't remember a climate of fear. I use the word climate.
It wasn't.
You know what I mean?
But there is now.
Yeah, there is now. Yeah, there's a great quote from a lyric from quite an obscure song from 1989 where it says, "Whether it's God or the bomb, it's just the same. It's only fear under another name." And that's exactly what it is. If they can project fear onto you, then they
can control you.
That's a good line, actually. I like that. I haven't heard that before. That's a good line.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about control. It's all about control.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because the more their claim, in effect, what it amounts to is they can change the climate by taxing you more.
Correct.
It's a bit like King Canute, really, and look what happened with him.
Look, they're saying things now like you under the DESNZ proposal, they're wanting electric tail rails to be having electronic fitted, so you're only allowed 6 hours a day of being on. Yeah. I mean, that's the minute control of the madness of Ed Miliband.
Absolutely.
Right? It's
probably the most dangerous man in government.
Yes, easily. It's beyond belief. And nothing will stop him. Nothing. Yeah. So in the North Sea, we've got the beautiful gas field discovered by the Norwegians that extends onto ours. Now, they're actually very reasonable people. Normally when that happens, we do a deal between the two on the extraction and try to do it proportionally.
Yeah.
But we're not drilling, so they're just taking all our gas and then selling it to us.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
and
madness.
selling it to us at a profit and bolstering their
That's right.
sovereign wealth fund, which is
Yeah,
why
well,
their
yesterday,
pension.
was it last night? Yeah, last night we were paying £560 a megawatt hour for energy in the market because of the shortage around Europe now. And it's madness. I've just done a video on wind, which I've really gone into some detail on. And I spent a couple of weeks making the video because I had to do a lot of graphics to make it simple and entertaining. I'm trying to entertain, but it's 32 minutes long. But so it's a proper program. But it goes into, I mean, if you take, do people know that 75% of our wind energy is under the what we call renewable obligation certificate? Let me tell you how that works quickly. You pay for the highest price that day. Everyone knows about that. So you pay the highest price that day, the marginal price, which is normally gas. And the reason for that is they've added all the carbon taxes on. So it's a totally artificial price. Then on top of that, the offshore wind gets 2 certificates, and they're worth £77 each. So you then add 150 odd pounds onto the highest price for the day. And you end up very easily with 250, 260 pounds. That's what you end up paying. Right? Yeah. It's madness. Yeah, but it's within the government's remit to actually do away with that overnight. Because it's a statutory thing that the minister can sign and say we don't want that. Yeah. And providing we leave the European Court for Human Rights, because they'd come in otherwise, we can do it. We can't do the same with contracts with a difference wind farms, but there's another way of doing that. I mean, all the share prices of these people like Ørsted have collapsed over 80%, and they haven't got the resources to put the wind farms back as it were, at the end of their lives. And we've got to make sure they do that. That's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, otherwise they'll leave us, the taxpayer, with a huge burden.
We're going to be left holding the baby.
Remediation cost.
Huge. We're talking billions. I mean, and then they've just come and said, oh, we've got to spend 80 billion now on increasing the grid for the renewables. The renewables because don't pay for that.
Yeah, because of the low grid intensity. Because they're all really low energy density, and you need a lot of
cables.
Exactly. I think if you take a typical, I forget, 800 megawatt power station or something, if the wind farms are running at 100%, then you can probably manage that with 60 turbines. But the problem is it's only 30% efficient. You know, the wind's only blowing at a level that generates efficiently for 30% of the time. So you'd actually need to triple the number to get the equivalent of an 800 megawatt power station. You need 180 times the connections to go into the grid, and you need inverters because it's direct current instead of alternating current.
But you don't get the equivalent because it still can all be stopped. In January 22nd, 5 o'clock in the morning last year, wind was 0.6% of the total energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it goes to zero. So no matter how you treble it, no matter how you quadruple it, it doesn't replace the gas station. What you don't have is a station you can say, I want this much now, I want this much tomorrow. You can't do that with wind. No. And so it's fun. It isn't just the trebling, it will do the same. It doesn't. You can't beat dispatchable energy. You can't beat it.
Exactly, and this is the problem, that the Miliband and his acolytes are so wedded to this idea of renewable energy being clean and cheap, and it's neither. And the more we put in, the more we compromise our energy security.
Well, we're heading for blackouts. We're heading for
exactly. We need more CCGT, and we need more nuclear because they're dispatchable, they're reliable.
Yeah.
Well, I also heard. I heard today as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, I heard today that there's also been asbestos found in some of these wind turbines.
What?
Asbestos
found in the blades.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, some of the Chinese have put asbestos.
So then, it's bad enough that they can't be recycled anyway. But if there's a problem with asbestos, then remediation becomes a lot more expensive dealing with asbestos.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. But you can't make it up because the greens aren't green. They're not worried about the environment. They're not worried about killing the hawks and the raptors. They're not worried about it.
No, they're a very good. There's a very good book called Watermelons. I'm trying to remember who the author is, but basically, what he explains is that they're green on the outside, but they're red on the insides. You know, so they're all sort of Marxist fascists. Actually, none of them are concerned
James
about
Delingpole.
They're interested. Yes, James Delingpole. That's him. They're interested in control by whatever means is available, and environment is an ideal Trojan horse, because we need to save the planet for our children. Well, actually, we need to get them away from trying to save the planet for our children, because they're actually compromising our children's future, and they should all be behind bars, or worse if it were up to me. Anyway, that's a different question. But yes, it's a very political issue, which doesn't have anything to do with science or with...
Look, why did you choose to spoil my day? Why did you choose?
That's purely down to our wonderful Charlotte. That's not us.
Charlotte just done that. That's terrible, Charlotte.
Yeah, that's Charlotte's done that.
Right, that really upsets me. You know what? My grandchildren, my granddaughter was about 11 or 12.
But the problem is, these are the same mantras that they've been pumping out for the last 50 years, and none of them have come true. So why should there be any more true now than there were 50 years ago when all this rubbish started? They've threatened us with, being immolated by runaway temperature change. Well, it hasn't happened. The satellite measurements show it goes up and down, but it doesn't go. And the climate models that they base all this crap on are junk science, and John Christie, of ex-NASA lead author, has shown, an IPCC lead author, has shown that they're rubbish. And there's only one climate model that reflects what's going on in measured temperatures from satellites and balloons, and that's the Russian one that doesn't even take any account of carbon dioxide, only water vapor.
Yeah, well, actually, what happened, I was giving a talk in a committee room in the House of Commons, and next to me was Lord Monckton, and I was the one before him. I was the one talking before him. And so I mentioned the only one that's near to it, it's not exact by any means, but it's near to it.
It's the nearest
the
one.
Russian one.
Yeah.
So as I sat down, he said, well, wow, do you know why the Russian one's right? Because I went to Moscow to tell them they had some maths wrong. And as I sat down, he said, we've already looked at it, the maths are wrong, and they changed it, right?
Yes.
And it was quite funny. I didn't know you were going to say that, but we sort of fed into each other in our talks. It's wonderful when that happens.
Yeah. We've had Christopher on, yes. He's
very entertaining, but very difficult to keep under control. It must be.
My granddaughter was asked, could she have the day off school in Bristol? Because all the schools were given a day off to go and see Greta. And I'm thinking, schools are being given a day off. And the mother said to her, tell me about the subject and explain the subject to me. And if you can do that, you can go. If you can't, you're not. And she couldn't, so she didn't go. And that was sensible, right? And so, but imagine that, schools giving a day off to go and see the watermelon, Greta, yes?
And serial truant as well. Because she's not in school, she's busy off demonstrating. Maybe if she spent more time at school, she wouldn't bother wasting her time demonstrating, because she'd understand things a bit better.
Just by accident, her ancestors, great ancestors sort of thing, are the ones who came up with the CO2 thing, the scientists. And just by accident, she was found against a school wall, not playing truant, because she's so upset about the future, by a man who specializes in public relations. Who just said, I can help you tell the world, everything by accident. It's a bit like our new prime minister, apparently, having cameras always ready when he takes a run and things. Everything is always there to suit the PR.
There's a certain irony, though, to schools following Greta's agenda and sort of encouraging kids to go along, is that there's more and more kids being taken out of school and having homeschooling because their parents no longer believe in the school system. Quite right as well. It's gone so politicized, like so many of our services. It's ridiculous.
That's right. It's right the way through. They have penetrated. It's almost the Fabian Society has penetrated all the quangos, all the civil servants, and so on. And don't forget, Tony Blair. Or was it was either Tony Blair or the one after, passed an act, Gordon Brown, who passed a law to say that the ministers cannot sack the civil servants, and that's quite a law, because it means they're not touchable, and that's got to be changed. And so, you can't make it up. I mean, it's obvious to anyone if they want to sit down and look. And so, as long as people remember well, I'm waiting to hear the news tonight. And the miracle in our house is my television screen. I've got a really expensive big 65-inch screen. Yeah. And the fact it survived, it has survived these things is amazing. That's the miracle.
Yeah. Don't have a bag of rocks by the side of you while you're watching.
No, honestly, I can't take them. I can't. And actually, seriously, the photograph of Greta then, I felt it. It put me down a bit. So Charlotte, I went, I managed the whole day avoiding that sort of thing.
Not again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Look, she's looking up.
Charlotte,
You know what she's looking at?
Can you?
She can see CO2. She can see it. She's the only human being in the world.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah. What you've been smoking, and can I have some? Charlotte, can you open the PDF I sent you and display page 3 for us? Because we can see some of the things that we've been talking about there. The one that's got a figure on it says pressure cooker climate models.
Well, while we're waiting for that to come, because Charlotte's probably going, what? The whole politicization of society is crazy. The police, I mean, the things that have been questioned about them, since what happened to that poor young chap who was, it's just amazing.
Left to bleed out.
Yeah.
Well, the rape gang inquiry.
The rape gangs,
The rape gang, that's been 200 pages, report from Rupert Lowe, and that's being ignored by the mainstream media. But they're going to take private prosecutions. That's going to get interesting.
Yeah. So, Charlotte's struggling with that graphic, Brian, but hopefully she'll resolve that shortly. But I mean, the whole nature of the environment that children grow up in these days, they are totally indoctrinated from day one, and it's so sad to see. It really is.
I don't know whether I've told you the story of my own grandson. He was 10, and recently last year or so, and he was going on to me on the phone about, Granddad, it's terrible about the Great Barrier Reef. And so I actually made a video. It's only a 2-3 minute video, and just totally saying it's the healthiest it's ever been. And I sent it to him. When I was on the phone, I said, "Do you watch?" He said, "Yeah, but I'm very sad." So I said, "Why are you sad?" And he said, "Well, I was wrong." And I said, "Oh, you prefer to stay wrong all your life, do you? Or you should be happy that your wrong has been put right."
Yeah.
He said, "That's a different way to think about it." I said, "Well, that's the way you should think." And he is he's really fanatical about different subjects. It goes into detail. And so that's the way you should be teaching children. But on the other hand, I'd arranged a debating society in the school, and they were going to get a person against me to debate me for the school debating society, the one and only big school in the Isle of Man. And I was going over there. I had television interviews, I had meetings in the evening, all day, everything. They really did arrange a hell of a tour for me. But the day before I arrived, 2 days before I arrived, they said, we can't find anyone who'll debate you. So I said, in that case, I'll attend, but I'm not going to give them my views on climate. I'm going to teach them what science is and how science is. It's not consensus, how science is based on evidence and so on. So I want to teach them how to think about science, because I'm not going to give them my views. Because if there was going to be a debate, fine. But nevertheless, the government stepped in, and they sent in their little sustainability energy centre people who, frankly, are idiots, to put it bluntly. The ignorance is incredible. They actually came on television there and said, "Can you imagine it? We're going to have free energy with the wind. Free! They get it now in Britain. They get free energy. We can have all the surpluses free." I mean, what world are they in? No, I have to put it right. No, we have to pay. We have to pay to give it away. Having paid for it once already. Yes.
Absolutely shocking.
And that's the world we're in. That's the world we're in. It's incredible. So
I don't know.
You still haven't got the page up.
Somewhere in the background, Charlotte is feverishly trying to do things.
No. Apparently, Charlotte has indicated that it doesn't like PDFs. So
is this it?
No, she'd have to take a screen snapshot and then post it as a.
Is that it there, Brian?
Oh, has it come up now? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So the top one, we were talking earlier on about all these various climate models. Well, this sort of massive lines here and below here is the total envelope of all the climate models. The red line is the average of all the climate models, statistically weighted average.
No,
you can't actually see it very well, but the bottom, the very lowest line that runs along the bottom of sorry, it's the purple line, runs below all of the climate model ones, and the purple one runs along pretty much contiguous with observations, and that's the Russian model at the very bottom. But the policies are based on the average of all these stupid overestimating climate models, and that's what's used to form IPCC policy and summary to politicians. And the politicians believe that that's the future when the observations don't match up at all with the climate models.
Can I make 2 points on that? One is they've now dropped all the high ones, all those grey lines at the top.
Relative concentration path at 8.5 or whatever it's called.
They've all been dropped. And the average is just simple, giving each one weight. It's simply an average. It's literally adding up the numbers and taking an average. That's all. Nothing fancy. And what you've got there, think about this, public. You've got 100 models. There's 99 there, I think. And only one can be right because they're all different.
Yeah.
And therefore, you know for certain that 2 possibilities, they can all be wrong, or one can be right. But if you've taken an average, then the least you know is you've got, if there's 100 there, you've got 99 wrong. So what you've just done is take an average of 99 wrong answers. That's not science.
No, it's stupidity dressed up as science.
That's right.
And I mean, the other thing is that, they say that this climate's stable, but when you actually look at the satellite temperature by month, you can see it varies all over the place. And yes, there's an upward trend, but when we started doing the measurements was in 1979 when we first got the satellite temperature measurement system up and running, and that was one of the coldest periods in the last 10,000 years. Not as cold as the start of the Industrial Revolution when we first started using mercury thermometers, but it was pretty cold. So you would hope if the temperature was going to go any way from 79 onwards, it would be up rather than down, because down is bad news. And they keep going on about, heat deaths, rising. But the problem is that cold deaths are about 10 times the number of heat deaths. So, if we have a few extra heat deaths in the summer because it's warmer, then we'll also get less heat deaths in the winter, because on average what's been happening is that it's not the top temperatures have been going up, but it's the nighttime temperatures on average which are rising because of the urban heat island effect we've been talking about in towns and cities. So that's actually better in terms of the overall number of deaths. But that gets smeared out, and the sensational approach gets publicized.
It's incredible. It's just incredible. There's no, and the balloons agree with the satellites, broadly.
Absolutely,
they agree. The actual empirical measurements, those are those. The others are just guesses by people. Models, they're not modeled. They're modeled on all sorts of things. I mean, you'd have had to, for the top ones, you'd have had to mine 7 times more coal than there is in the earth and things like this to get the CO2 up. But they're meaningless. They're absolutely meaningless. Make a point here. In the little ice age, the coldest period was, we reached the bottom of it about 1690. So 1690 was the bottom. And we started to warm 150 years before the 1850. Right? Before 1815, just the resolution started. So we were warming. That accounted for between 0.5 and 0.5 a degree up to 1850. And then since then, we've gone up about 1.4, right? So do you want to be back in the little ice age? Do you want to be back in that? The fact that we got down into it from the medieval warm period and coming up has got nothing to do with anthropogenic warming. So I know some would argue the farming changed it a tiny bit, but so there's natural cycles anyway. Now, yes, the CO2 we put in does have an influence, but it's quite minor compared to the rest. And my best work is the Oceanic Index, and I, it's incredible. When I first did that, and I said to the computer, plot it, and it plotted the actual measurements, then it plotted my work, and you couldn't tell the difference in the lines. And I had to look, hold on, and I thought, no, it's got to be wrong. It can't be that accurate. And it was. I did 20 odd tests saying, I've got to prove this wrong because it's too good. And it was that good. And it's basically the oceans. What you're seeing in those big things is the oceanic cycles, right?
Yeah.
Together with variations in the sun cycle. That's what you're seeing. And a gradual dying effect of CO2. If you put it all together like that, that's what you see.
Yeah.
Nothing to be worried about.
No.
The only thing we've got to be worried about is the people that are spouting this agenda.
Yes. But it's hurting us. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
You know what? My wife said today, she said, we bought a lot of dinner plates from Denby. Dinner
yeah, because they're struggling, aren't they, Denby? Yeah.
And my wife just said,
haven't they gone bust?
These are collector's items. Now we can't replace broken ones. That's it, because they're going out of business because of the high energy prices. Yeah. And Minivan's quite happy for all this. He's quite happy to destroy thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. In fact, millions of jobs. And so it's madness. And you know what? It ain't going to happen with the electric cars. It ain't going to happen. Full stop. You know? And you've got the Conservatives. My latest one I'm working on now, the video, I compare the Conservative reform and restore energy policies. And the Conservatives are sort of not left net zero. They want to slow it down. Wrong. The reform are really out and out, get rid of net zero, but they've got no meat on the bone. And restore put meat on the bone because we're working with them. But I'm offering my help to any party. I don't want to belong to any party. I just offer my help to any party. And even things like the ECS certificates, for a home or a factory. The cost of that is between 30 and 50 billion. Because so many town centres can't be restored because they can't upgrade the building to conform to the ECS standard. My home now, I can't go more in insulation, and yet unless I fit a heat pump which doesn't change the insulation, or a solar panel which doesn't change the insulation, I can't upgrade the ECS. So what I'm saying is make them voluntary and make them only about insulation, nothing to do with solar or anything else. And a generator, I can run my generator indefinitely. I've got a pump to take it from my oil tank to fill up the diesel. That's legal because it's for heating. So on. I've got a 6 kilowatt generator, good old diesel head there, if you like. But in a blackout, if it's a week, we can have electricity all the time. Your 10 kilowatt, 10,000 pound battery will last a few hours. It's madness. And we're going to end up with that. We're going to end up with blackouts. And
it's frightening
by the way,
prospect.
the per capita reduction in electricity consumption in Britain since 2000 is between 25 and 30% per capita. Per capita. And overall, we've had an 18% reduction. The industries have left. It's madness.
And energy consumption per capita in China is now amongst the highest in the world. It far exceeds ours.
Yes, that's right. And I've come up with an index. When I was doing the restore thing behind the scenes, they were going on about index, and I said, no, we need just not the amount of electricity per capita, but you have to divide that by the cost, because it isn't just the amount per capita, it's the cost of it per capita. Because it's a waste of time having electricity if it's 3 times, 4 times the price of everyone else. So that's a new index that we've come up with on that. I've got a paper on that. So I've got a lot of papers on Substack that I do. So that's that. But we're in a mad world, and I'm 81. I'm doing all I can to reverse it before I kick the bucket.
Well, Charlotte, I don't know if you managed to pull up page 3. Can you pull up page 4 of the PDF that you were showing, because it's got there's one graph which is really interesting, links to what we were saying about historical variations and where we are now, and it's one of my favorite ones. If we can pull that up. It's also got a quote. It's also got a quote on it from one of the Danish climatologist Lennart Bengtsson, and he said, the warming we have had over the last 100 years is so small that if we didn't have meteorologists and climatologists to measure it, we wouldn't have noticed it at all.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, if you take the thermometer reading, it would just be like a level graph, right?
Yeah.
You
What
know.
it is, this page shows the things that the IPCC has been getting its underwear in the knot about. There it is. That's the top one. That's how much of a temperature variation there is.
Charlotte.
And
Well
the
done,
scale,
Charlotte.
brilliant, Charlotte. Well done. The scale is a typical sort of variation over a British winter. So +30 down to -6 with an average of about 12, which is, you know, you can argue where you put the average, but the simple point is, if you plot the temperature anomaly against the 0 point, it hardly moves. And we've got scientists, you know, going apoplectic about a 1.4 Celsius change in temperature in over 50 years. Well, well, actually, no, it's less than 1.4 over 50. It's probably about
It's 1.4 since 1850.
Yeah, but it's less than the last 50 years, probably half of that.
Well,
but the other thing is the historical temperature record of the Greenland ice core thing, which is the graph below, and you can see all the peaks where the temperature is higher than it was now, and the scale is from about 10,000 years ago up to present day. And then you can see we went to the smallest of the peaks towards the right-hand side of the graph is the medieval warming. And then you see that we drop below the average, and we've been below the average for about roughly 1,000 years, with the little peaks, with the Roman, Minoan, Roman, medieval, and then current warm period. And the current warm period's just brought us back up to what the long-term average is.
We're just coming out of it, aren't we?
Exceptional going on in the temperature. It's nothing that the planet hasn't experienced before.
Yeah,
not at all. If we had a 1 degree C rise in temperatures over the world, it doesn't happen in the equator, it happens towards the poles, we would have the tree line move 80 miles north, and that would create tens of thousands of square miles of extra growth.
Yeah, well, of course, in the Holocene period, you could cultivate in Greenland. It was green, and that's why it was called green. But then since then, it's been pretty much covered in ice and pretty inhospitable.
Yeah.
I think to sum things up, chaps, because I think we're going to have to go. That song that I quoted from before, so where they try to control us through God for many, many years.
Yeah,
they tried to control us by the threat of the bomb for many, many years, and now this is how they're trying to control us, is through this agenda. So if they can't stay with one thing, they move on to another, and then they keep trying something else. So who knows what's coming next? But it's just about control.
Yeah, well, and this bandwagon's starting to run out of steam now. I mean, certainly Trump has done a great deal to spike its guns, and in America, people are just, you know, even the Democrats have realized it's not a vote winner anymore. No. You look at, you know, we've got a government that says it's committed to growth, and we've got growth of what, 0.1%. I thought if it was growth of less than 2%, we're in a recession actually. And growth of 0.1%.
If you take your growth per capita, it's not that.
Yeah. But American growth's at 4% and rising.
Yeah.
So who's got it right? Us or Trump? I know.
And on that note,
well,
hold that thought. I'm sure we'll see you again sometime, Paul.
Indeed, Paul. Thanks,
brilliant having you on
participation. Again. Good to see you again, and we'll catch up with you soon.
We will.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.